Criminology is a study of crime, the criminal, and the criminal behavior. It started in Europe in 19th century. The father of modern criminology is Cesar Lombroso, and based from his theory, the positivist theory, he believes that a criminal is only a sick person that needs rehabilitation and reformation. Criminology originated from the word crimen, which means crime or accusation, and logos logia, which means study. In year 1885, an Italian professor, which is Rafael Garofalo, coined the term criminology. Republic Act 6506 is an act creating the Board of Criminology in the Philippines. Criminology has a four division. The first is the criminal etiology, the sociology of law, phenology or correction, and lastly criminalistic or forensic science. Criminal etiology deals with the study of the causes of crime and its origin. In sociology of law, it is said that there is no crime if there is no law. We found out that the weakest pillar in the criminal justice system is the phenology or correction, because if a person rehabilitates and be freed, this person may commit the same crime again. Criminalistic or forensic science is the study of the criminal things or the physical evidence, intangible things like fingerprinting. Criminology has its four nature. First, criminology is an applied science because in the study of criminology, you need to apply different sciences to know if a certain things or behavior are the causes for committing the crime. Second, it is a social science because criminology or the study of criminology or crime is a natural part of the society. The study of criminology is dynamic because it changes from time to time and it is based on the progress of the advancement of sciences. And lastly, it is nationalistic because we need to consider with the existing law within that territory. Crime is an act or omission in violation of criminal law and its legal point, and it is an antisocial act that are against in the norms of the society. The word crime has more specific name or genetic name. The first is the offense. Offense is a violation in special laws like Republic Acts and executive orders. Second is felony. It is an act that punishable by the revised penal code in the criminal law. Delinquency or misdemeanor is a violation in simple rules and the offender is a minor. And lastly, the infraction of law, it is the violation in the ordinances like municipal ordinances, the city ordinances, and lastly, the barangay ordinances. Crime has a different classification. The first, we can call it acquisitive when an offender acquires something on his criminal act. Extinctive when the offender has the intention of destruction and the property or loss. Seasonal when a crime is committed in a certain period of a year. Situational when crime are those given situation conducive to its omission. Episodic is also known as a serial crime because it is committed in a lengthy space of time. Instant crime is committed with a shortest possible time. We can call a crime a static when it is committed in only one place, and continuing crime when it is committed in several places. When the offender committed a crime with intent or full possession, we can call it rational. Rational crime if it is not without intent and the offender does not know the nature of his criminal act. By imitation is committed in the duplication of what was done by the others. Crime by passion if it is committed by the great fit of emotions. This crime are those committed through the rendition of a service to satisfy one's desire of another. In RPC Book 2, we have 13 legal classifications of a crime. Title 1 is Crime Against National Security. Example of this is treason. It is the betrayal of allegiance, or it is the adherence to enemy's country. Offender is a Filipino citizen or the resident alien in the Philippines. Title 2 is the crime against the fundamental law of the state. One example of this is the arbitrary detention. The offender is the public officer with power, or he or she detain a person without legal ground or without warrant of arrest. Title 3. Crimes against public order. One example of this is the rebellion or the insurrection. It is committed of 1,000 of men, and this deprived the president or the chief of the government. Title 4. Crimes against public interest. One of the example of this is the forgery. Forgery is all about erasing, substituting counterfeit tickets or treasury notes like money. Title 5. Crimes against public morals. Best example of this is the gambling, the prostitution, the grave scandal, the illegal cockfighting, and the illegal horse races. Title 6. Crimes committed by public officer. This has the three categories: the malfeasance, the misfeasance, and the non-feasance. Malfeasance is an action that is not to be done by the public officer. Misfeasance is the improper action of a public officer. Non-feasance is the offender failed to do an act. Title 7. Crimes against person. Murder and homicide is both unlawful killing, but murder has aggravating qualifying circumstances and homicide has not. Title 8 is all about the crimes against property, like robbery, arson, and theft. Arson is an act or crime with the intent of burning and the destruction. Title 9. Crimes against personal liberty and security. One of the example of this is the slight illegal detention. The offender is a private person or public officer with the power of arrest. Title 10. Crimes against chastity like concubinage and adultery. Title 11. Crimes against civil status of a person like bigamy and illegal marriages. Title 12. Crimes against honor like libel and oral defamation. Lastly, Title 13. Quasi-offenses or criminal negligence. One of the best example of this is the imprudence or the negligence. The second object of interest in criminology is a criminal. A criminal is a person who committed a crime and convicted by a court and found guilty, and a person who do an antisocial act which is against the norms of the society. In study of criminology, we have the three approaches: the subjective approach, the objective approach, and the general approach. Subjective approach is the biological explanation of a crime, focused on the abnormalities of an individual before and after the commission of a crime. Subjective approach has 7 sub-approaches. The first is the anthropological. It is the study of the criminal characteristics to know the differences of the offender with non-offender of their criminal behavior. Medical approach, it is the medical examination of an offender to know the mental condition before and after the commission of a crime. In biological approach, it is said that our genes has a factor in our criminal behavior. In psychological, the primary needs of a man is a strong factor for the commission of a crime. In physiological approach, the primary needs is a strong factor for a commission of a crime. Psychological approach, the deprivation of psychological need of a man is a strong factor for the commission of a crime. The example of this is the love, the care, and the attention of one person. In psychiatric approach, the mental disease of a person is a factor why he commit a crime. Psychoanalytical, the improper development or the improper balance of the element of the self, like the id, the ego, and the superego, is the factor for the commission of a crime. The second general approach is the objective approach. It is the study of group, the social processes, and the institution as influence of the behavior. It has 4 sub-approaches. First is the geographical approach. It is the weather, the location, the resources is a factor for the commission of a crime. In ecological approach, the biotic grouping of men like migration, the division of labor, discrimination, and the social conflict is a factor for the commission of a crime. In economic approach, poverty is one of the factors why a person commits crime due to their needs. In socio-cultural, the major factor for the commission is a crime is the institution, the religion, the education, and also the politics. The third general approach is the contemporary approach. It is the combination of the subjective approach and the objective approach for the commission of a crime. In criminology, it has the different theories on crime causation. For example, is the demonological theory, which means that a person commit crimes because he is possessed by demons. In utilitarian hedonism, a person commit crimes to seek pleasure and to avoid pain. It is willful and with intent. Also, it is a voluntary. In anomy theory, the non-existence of the law in a society which encourages people to commit crime. In human ecology, it is the interrelationship of human and environment. In somatotyping theory, it is all about the body physique of a person. For example, skinny persons are prone to commit fraud and theft. In differential association theory by Edwin Sutherland, the criminal behavior can learn through the process of association to others. Containment theory is like a contemporary approach because the internal and the external factor may contribute for the commission of a crime. Social class and capitalism theory. The upper class of the society is responsible for the ideological biases in the interpretation and enforcement of laws. So the lower class may commit crimes because they are unemployed or underemployed. In strain theory, a person commits crimes because they are failed to achieve higher status goals in life. In the study of criminology, there are three broad schools of thought: the classical, the neoclassical, and the positivist. Positivist is also known as the Italian school. In classical school, it is said that a man is responsible for his act because he has an absolute free will to choose between right and wrong. In neoclassical school, there are a situation that it has to make an impossible to exercise the free will. There is an exemption in minor, the insane, and lunatic because they don't know the consequences of their acts. In positivist school, they emphasizes the rehabilitation and the scientific treatment of a criminal. Criminal investigation is a process of collecting facts to attain, to locate, and to identify the offender, and to provide the evidence of his guilt. A criminal investigator is also known as a fact finder. He must know whether or not an offense is committed under the law. There's three tools of investigation: the information, the interrogation, and interview or instrumentation. I also learned about the study of criminal behavior. There are a list of defense mechanisms like sublimation, suppression, regression, denial or intellectualization, projection, fixation undoing, action formation, lastly, displacement. There is also a theory of human development. First is the oral stage at the age of 0 to 2. Second, anal stage, age 2 to 3. Lastly, genital stage, age 3 to 4. The two classification of behavior is the normal behavior and the abnormal behavior. Normal behavior is also called as adaptive or adjusted behavior. It is the accepted behavior because they follow the norms of the society. While abnormal behavior are also called as maladaptive or maladjusted behavior. They go against the norms of the society. Different kinds of behavior is the overt or covert behavior, the conscious and the unconscious behavior, simple or complex behavior, rational and irrational behavior, lastly, voluntary or involuntary behavior. Aspects of behavior such as intellectual aspects that pertains to the way of thinking of a person. Emotional aspects pertains to how we interact. Moral aspect refers to our conscience. Psychosexual aspect refers to our being a man or a woman. Political aspects pertains to our ideology. And lastly, value or attitude pertains to our interest in one thing. The criminal formula is C is equal to T plus S over R. Neurotic and psychoneurotic behavior does not require hospitalization. Neurosis is the core of the most maladaptive lifestyle. It is the tendency to avoid rather than to cope with stress. This may be called neurotic nucleus. Neurotic paradox is the tendency to maintain the lifestyle despite its maladaptive nature. Anxiety disorder or neurotic fear. One of the example of this is the obsession, which is uncontrollable impulse to do something, and compulsion when the act or a result is the cause for the repetitive acts. Asthenic disorder if it is from various aches and pains. Phobic if it is persistent to fear of an object or situation. In somatoform disorder, the individual is preoccupied by his state of health or disease. There are three classifications of symptoms of hysteria: the sensory, the motor, and the visceral symptoms. Under sensory, we have anesthesia, is the loss of sensitivity. The hyperesthesia is the excessive sensitivity. Hypesthesia, the partial loss of sensitivity to pain. Analgesia, loss of sensitivity to pain. And paresthesia, exceptional sensation. In motor symptoms, we have paralysis, is the selective loss of function. Asphasia abasia, inability to control leg when standing. Aphonia and mutism. In visceral symptoms, we have choking sensation, coughing spells, difficulty in breathing, cold, clammy extremities, and nausea. Amnesia is the inability of a person to recall or to identify past experiences after his or her traumatic incident. Sexual behaviors may lead to sexual crimes or sex crimes. Homosexuality is having an intercourse with the same sex. Pedophilia is a sexual intercourse with a child. Bestiality is a sexual intercourse with animals. Autosexual is a self-gratification. Gerontophilia is a sexual intercourse with the elder person. Necrophilia is a sexual intercourse with a corpse or incest. Oralism, when someone uses tongue or mouth for sexual gratification or satisfaction. Sadomasochism is pain, cruelty for sexual gratification. Voyeurism is also called as pipintom. One of the examples of crimes in the modern world is an organized crime. It is also known as the mob, the mafia, the syndicate, or the Cosa Nostra. One of its primary goal is the economic gain through illegal means. Organized crime shall not include terrorists that are dedicated to political change. In organized crime, there must be an enforcer who make arrangement for killings, a corrupter who bribes and negotiate, and corruptee who is a public official and influence the behalf of organization's interest. In professional crimes, the occupation or the incumbents possess various traits in including useful knowledge that requires lengthy training. When a criminal act is committed by a person of respectability and social status in the course of his occupation, we can call it white-collar crimes. White-collar crimes has three forms such as corporate crimes, occupational and environmental crimes. Conventional crimes is a group of crimes that is categorized as violent and property crimes. Violent crime is in the form of interpersonal violence, political and collective violence. Property crime is an economic interest like shoplifting, burglary, and arson. Example of violent crimes is murder and homicide. Murder and homicide are both unlawful killing, but murder has the presence of aggravating circumstances. We have serial murder, spree murder, and mass murder. An assault is an unlawful attack that it is inflict to physical injuries. Robbery is a violent theft who takes property that belongs to another with intent to force upon things. Muggers is the most feared robbers. A carnal knowledge of a woman that are against in her will are what we call rape. We can say that it was a real rape if it is involved a violence. Simple rape if it the victims viewed as suspicious, particularly if the victim did not physically resist. Occasional property crimes is a group that tend to commit crimes such as auto theft of motor vehicle theft, vandalism, and shoplifting. Arson is an example of destructive property crimes. Arson is an unlawful burning of property. Prostitution, pornography, abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism, and gambling are examples of victimless crime. Victimless crime are those crime who engage self-destructive behavior. Correction is all about the punishment and the penalty that are given to those person who commits crime or do an antisocial act. Punishment are closely to penalty because these two involves pain and suffering. The ancient form of punishment are death penalty. Death penalty involves beheading, burning, and even hanging. Physical torture is the most brutal punishment for me because a person experience a high level of pain, long-term process such as whipping, mutilation. Social degradation is the easiest way for me. Why? Because offender may not experience some kind of pain, but only shame and humiliation. Punishment or exile, the offender is into specified territory. Lastly, some offender may undergo slavery. Prisoner undergoes prison discipline like hard labor. In hard labor, prisoners do an construction activities. Monotony is the small of food of quantity to eat. When one offender do wrong, all of them are wrong and they will be punished. In mass movement, all of them are always gathered in all aspects like bathing, eating, and their cells. And lastly, the isolation or what we called the lone wolf. Prisoners are always alone. He or she may not experience any type of communication at all. In this generation, the form of punishment is imprisonment, parole, probation, fines, and disterio. This is my first time to hear the word disterio, which means offender is banished in a specific area near or enter the 25-kilometer perimeter. Some punishment are giving a lesson to an offender, which is called deterrence. Congregate system, prisoners must stay in their cells at night, and during daylight, they do some workshops. While in solitary system, the prisoner stays in their cells during night and daylight. Based on the law, different crimes will be punished with different penalties. It must be always commensurate with the offense. It is also personal because the one who commit crimes is the responsible for the punishment. There is no proxy. Punishment and consequence are legal in accordance with the existing law. There is no bias. All persons are equal, whether you are poor or rich. Correctional, there's a great possibility that an offender may change for a better to be an better citizen. Prison and jails is different because jails are a building that imprison a person who commit minor offense or felonies. Prison is for major or serious crime. During the Aquino administration, under Executive Order 292, Bureau of Prison was renamed as Bureau of Correction. The Bureau of Correction is under the Department of Justice or the DOJ. The warden is responsible for the security, safety, and the discipline of the inmates. Detention prisoner are those detainees who detained for investigation. They await their trial. Sentence prisoner are prisoner who undergoes jurisdiction. Prisoners who are on safekeeping include non-offenders like insane and having mental disorder. They are detained for them to protect the community as well as themselves. So overall, I realized that correction deals with individuals who have been committed a crime. Its role is to ensure that an offender's sentence is carried out, whether in jail or in prison, and probation based on the offense they commit, and the punished will be in accordance with the law. As I've mentioned earlier, criminalistics is one of the division of criminology. Is the study of criminal things or the physical evidence that may found in the crime scene. One of the technological division of criminalistic is fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is the cornerstone of criminal investigation. Everyone's fingerprint is unique throughout the world and it is permanent in our life. It is also the most infallible by means of personal identification because fingerprints will never make a mistake and it is unchangeable. Photographs makes a big help in the reconstruction of a crime. It serves as evidence to prove facts. Through this, we can detect the offender as well as the victim. We can use it also in court exhibits, demonstrate enlargement of individual photos, motion, and pictures. For example, we can use photographs as an evidence to present a picture of a dead body. It is also a representation of a one thing that we can bring to the courtroom during trial. Photograph is also a method of preserving evidence. We can use it also in training or in relation of the police programs, symposiums in schools. Question document are those facts appearing not true. It is authenticity, identity, or origin. If a document is notarized by the public, we can call it public document. Graph is a truth verifier, and it is a scientific method of detecting deception. Forensic is a branch of medicine that deals with the medical knowledge, the application of medical knowledge, in the purpose of justice. Doctors may present the autopsy of the victims of a crime. Real evidence is not limited. It is perceived by our five senses. Testimonial evidence is given orally under oath of affirmation. Forensic ballistic is a science of firearm identification. It helps to compare and identify the weapons that alleged to have been used in the commission of a crime. Internal ballistic is a study and to show the projection or motion of the bullet inside the gun. External ballistic is a study and showing the movement of the bullet from gun muzzle to the target. Terminal ballistic shows the impact of projectile in the target. In criminal law, crimes are punished under the law in force at the time of their commission. One of the generic name of crime is a felony. Felony is punishable by the revised penal code. Intentional felonies is committed, performed with deliberate intent, and by means of dolo or deceit. Offender must have freedom, the intelligence, and the intent. Culpable felonies is a wrongful act or imprudence, negligence, and lack of skills. Offender have freedom, the intelligence, but without intent, like car accidents.